Namaskaram. Friday, May 7th, episode number 158. Daily Global Insights with Sri and Sri. Today, we have some breaking news from the G7 group. Before I do that, let me welcome Sridharji to our program. Sridharji, Namaskaram and welcome to PGurus channel, sir.
Namaskar. Good morning to everybody as we wrap up May 7th, the Friday. The markets are pumped up and going up and up and up.
And in the G7 leaders echo Biden and Suga on the need for stability in Taiwan. Your initial thoughts, sir?
My thoughts are that this has been a repeated assertion that Taiwan remains the red flag. I hope Mr. Biden is reminded that this is not another red flag, and he and his former boss talked about in Syria, and then rest is history. The breach of the Taiwan red flag could be catastrophic for not only South China Sea and Indo-Pacific, but around a whole set of nations in that region.
And China rejects G7 criticism on human rights. No surprise there, sir.
Absolutely no surprise at all, because we have, again, through DGI, been speaking about that strangely, but no surprise under Xi Jinping leadership, that they have taken a very aggressive and assertive rebuttal posture on all political matters around the world.
Japan and South Korea agreed to coordinate with US on North Korea. This is just merely reaffirming an existing point, isn't it, sir?
It is. It's a reaffirmation of an existing point. To me, it's a statement that is made as a ceremonial gesture, because Mr. Biden has indicated that Korea and Japan needs to work together to address. I mean, they're breaking up the whole South China Indo-Pacific into parcels and trying to do it. But to me, it's a ceremonial. The reason being that Biden has spent 37 years in the Senate. He has not solved this particular problem. This is a long lingering problem. 8 years under Biden, he has not solved this problem. Under Obama, he has not solved this problem. The only person, doesn't matter whether it's Democratic or Republican, the only president who has kept this puppet quiet is President Trump. He met him, shared his ego, met him in Singapore, and he kept him quiet. Otherwise, he was until then he was unleashing his toys wherever he wants and wherever it could land. It could land near Japan, it could land near Hawaii, and he was threatening. But during the Trump tenure, somehow Trump was able to wean him away. Whatever there may have been with China, he still kept him away. So I see this as just another ceremonial statement. And the North Korean dictator has cares two hoops about what Mr. Biden thinks.
Sir, this is an unrelated item, but around China, sir. China, the sea off of the coast of China, for example, Taiwan or to the south, is very shallow, which kind of limits its mobility of its submarines. But Japan, on the other side, where the sea between Japan and China is more deep, and that allows Japan to have more submarines to kind of patrol what China is up to. So China is trying to do some maneuvers, right? I mean, they are trying to do some shallow subs. What is the status there?
The status is that the waters around the China Sea are much more shallow relative to the deeper waters in East China. Most of the Chinese submarines are built for much deeper water navigation. So it's a giant strategy which Japan and US are looking at, whether they really can choke the Chinese submarines around the Chinese entry point and potentially create a blockade rather than allowing them to come into the deeper South China Sea and Indo-Pacific. It's a very interesting strategy that's being conceived. But it's also, China is obviously always trying to prepare itself to mitigate these kinds of strategic maneuvers.
And viewers, we have put up a small island called Palau on our image here. And Palau is a small island which has invited the United States military to build on its island. As you can see, it is very close to Philippines. It's the east of Philippines. Perhaps it also feels threatened. Your thoughts, sir?
It's in a very geostrategic location, and as people can see from the map, it is not only closer to Philippines, it's closer to Indonesian island, It's further north of Australia, going into the Pacific. There has been a concerted strategy by China to, occupy islands from Vanuatu in Papua New Guinea and small islands in the Pacific. There is also a tender, that is the tender for underground cables that go around the Indo-Pacific and connects all the way into the South China. So they have been trying to bid, and there was a concerted effort made by the Quad countries and the Pacific Islands not to give it the what you call as the licensing rights to build that cable. They also have been threatening apparently Palau to say that if they don't, they will occupy the island and build bases around it. So Palau has now reached out to the United States and says, we need a deterrence, and who better than yourself to be part of it, because you only will build bases, not take over my island.
And news from the same region: China suspends the economic dialogue with Australia. Sir, this has been going on. We have been reporting in DGI about the tensions between Australia and China. So now China says, nope, we are suspending everything with you. So, your thoughts on where you think this will be headed?
It's a tit for tat game. Where is this headed? It depends on whether who is at the helm. Scott Morrison and his defense minister and the foreign minister, external affairs, or foreign minister. Um, they're very strong, and they recognize that Australia must assert and have its sovereignty and independence. You have seen statements come out. They also are contemplating the Darwin Island cancellation of the 99-year-old lease, or restricting the components of the lease without compromising the sovereignty of the nation. So what does China do? China basically says, I'm suspending all discussions on trade until further notice.
In US related news, US Embassy Puppies post riles up the Chinese social media. This sounds very interesting. What happened here?
Well, there's a very interesting picture, but in the interest, we're not posted that picture. You can see the social media, which is there's little puppies moving around. Puppies are sent for little training, and then they are ready to be unleashed or are ready to be absorbed as a pet into various households. So the May 4th was the day when the visa processing started for the Chinese students. We again reported that in DGI. So this particular little post made its way, which is to say, made its way to subtly but sarcastically endorse the re-entry of the Chinese students on the social media. Obviously, it's a little game and received very adverse. Is it what I forget the name? Is it Weibo or WeChat? One of these big social media Chinese platforms. They saw that backlash coming out as a result of this.
And in other news, US must re-engage with Asian partners and rejoin CPTPP and US China to assess phase 1 trade deal according to the Biden trade chief. So all the sins are all washed away. US wants to sit down and start engaging with China again.
Well, I think I just want to make one clear observation to all the viewers, listeners, followers, etc. United States policy today is consistently inconsistent, or it is consistently ambiguous and ambivalent. One can understand the reason on Catherine Tai, who heads the trade, as well as her, who is in the WTO as the representing United States. You are beginning to see the what you call the ripple effect of these 3 or 4 people running the White House. One can see why CPTPP, though it is not of significant relevance to United States, because United States, we have already covered this extensively as bilateral relationship with a number of countries in the Trans-Pacific. All these are symbolic. While one can understand, you want to get in, you remember that UK is the #1 waiting list candidate there. Then you hear this next statement, which is to say that we are now re-engaging with China, and we will be assessing what would be the phase 1 of this specific deal. If you recall, again in DGI, we have indicated that the reason why China has stopped the rhetoric on Taiwan in the recent days and stopped its incursions, which it was doing almost on a daily basis, is because it wants to sit down for discussions with United States. So this is the obviously, they know something, and this is the ripple effect of this. If all hunky dory, and we again reported 2 days ago, maybe even yesterday, the trade deficit has increased by about $74 billion for the month of April, and of which 11.6% increase is with China and contraction with Mexico, which is right near shore. So it's a very interesting set of data that you're beginning to see, and it is more conflicting and compounding in terms of what Biden's policy is full of rhetoric whenever he is in any of these big platforms, but it contravenes with some of the on-ground decisions that is being made by some of the members of his cabinet.
Now, this whole idea of trying to raise taxes on corporates is definitely going to push US towards disaster, because nobody would want to do business inside of the US. That means there'll be jobs will be going away, and the very people that are dependent on them, that is their core voter base, those are the ones that are going to suffer, isn't it?
Well, this whole corporate tax, Biden indicated that it's going to, I don't know. First, they started. Mr. Buttigieg said 17 million. Then he retracted. He said 3 million, and that 3 million also looks out of whack. When you tax a corporation, how are they going to allocate the additional capital that's available to them, or additional capital that's been taken out in terms of expansion of their corporate their businesses? Doesn't add up. And actually, an independent tax foundation study found that actually there is going to be loss of more than 170,000 jobs, and there is not going to be a revenue accretive as a result of this. There is going to be a net loss of this. Now, he's probably got wind of that, and so he has come up with another strategy, which is called as the 61% increase in wealth inheritance tax. So the latest statement that is making rounds is many people have 2 homes, 2 boats, and a private jet. They can afford to pay for those who don't have any. So this is Biden's now marketing adage as to how to justify it. So wherever he is going to lose, suppose he's losing on corporate side when he says he's willing to compromise, the next thing that you see is you have some new tax coming up. We already have found that he has a $1.3 trillion hole on the America Child Plan. So more and more numbers, that means more and more gapping holes. So he has to find a way. Clearly on the corporate side, as you rightly pointed out, there's a huge pushback.
Now, AOC and Markey want to push a 10 billion, 1.5 million people run Climate Corporation, which is an entity, think of it, which will enforce this climate compliance by various countries. First of all, sir, do we need that many people? Second of all, how can United States enforce compliance of other countries?
Now, first and foremost, all you need to do is, I'm not going to repeat in the brevity of time. All of you need to go back and look at AOC's background. Okay, study the background and Markey's background, and figure out for yourself whether they have any competencies to make judgments around how you make policy decisions. Just because you attended a climate rally doesn't entitle you to be a subject matter expert in that domain. So she wants to have 1.5 million people and a 10 billion budget. Has he managed a penny in her life? Go back and take a look. Right? This is how the Democrats run havoc with money. It has only 2 agenda items. One, votes and jobs. 1.5 million guaranteed votes. So they probably will, for that, they're willing to pay $10 billion of your money and my money, and then run an agenda which is not going to produce the outcome in the tenure that she's in. So therefore, to me, this is what I see as the agenda.
And in India-related news, Reliance will be flying in Israeli experts to operationalize the diagnostic system. Is this something to do with the COVID case, sir?
It is to do with COVID. India today is all about COVID, oxygen cylinders. If you're not talking about oxygen cylinders, you're probably talking about burning homes and people fleeing Bengal. These are the only 2 things that's going on in India at the moment, while in the media. While in the background, there's a lot of activity going on, but the primary focus is around this So we are now breeding so much of oxygen, I'm told, in India, that there is excess supply of oxygen. Is more around facilities that needs to receive this oxygen and give it to people. So now this gentleman, Mr. Ambani, has come up with a much more innovative scheme. He has brought in the Israelis. He said, within 15 seconds, 20 seconds, or 1 minute or 2 minutes, this Israeli equipment will be able to diagnose and say whether it is COVID or not COVID. I'm told again, a lot of people are getting admitted out of fear or running around for the fear of, in the fear that they have COVID, but it's taking a fair amount of time by way of testing and so on. So this could be one way by which people can be tested and say, look, you don't have a COVID or you have a very mild symptom of COVID, 10 days at home, you will be relieved. So I think it's a very good program.
And Indian Navy is bringing home liquid medical oxygen and medical equipment in 9 warships. And India has received 3,000 concentrators as supplies arrive from all around the world. This just reinforces what you just observed, that perhaps now India has enough oxygen.
I think India has enough oxygen coming now out of the years. It requires people to logit. People forget that just because you have lots of oxygen doesn't mean that the states can sleep. The states slept. That's a separate topic which we don't have time to run into. And again, mainstream hides the news. How much of money has been given to each of the states and what they have done with the money in terms of augmenting the oxygen capability as part of the COVID program. So you can have all the oxygen in the world. If states don't gear themselves to receive, manage it, and give it to people, all of it will be lying in warehouses or will be lying in ships. But the great news is the world has supported. Entire logistics has come into play. Army, Navy, private, corporate enterprises are now supplying oxygen. So, including Taiwan, has sent 150, I think 150 or so containers of oxygen. So, India is well on its way in terms of its domestic needs. Now they have to get the logistics and the healthcare services going.
And in markets news, Pfizer's insistence on protection against lawsuits stalls India approval. Now, Pfizer is asking India for what? That they be immune from any deaths that might be happening because of taking the vaccine?
I think that there's again, worldwide, we have seen the Gallup poll, we have seen the Rasmussen poll, we have seen the WHO poll. There's a lot of still resistance. In fact, in the United States, Target is offering $5 discount coupon for those people who are willing to go and vaccinate. For people may think, what's $5? For a lot of people who do coupon redemptions, $5 is a lot of money, to be discounted at the till. So there's a resistance. So Pfizer is saying, Pfizer has been given the permission in its entirety to retail. It's saying there is bound to be issues, and the issues can come from a range of things, including the vaccine itself. But I don't want to be sued for the collateral consequences resulting from it. And India, the people are always afraid of India by way of any adverse kinds of activities. Then you have all these rights lobbies and groups and so on. They pump up. So I think that's what that is about. We do not want. It's a new vaccine. It's getting into the market. It's very well tested in the United States, but there will still be collateral consequences. But we want to be immune from damages.
And yet another record day in the markets. Sir, with your permission, I'll put up the deck again and we will show where the Dow is. It has risen to 34,848 points and 53.53, and it is a new record, sir. And like you said, it just keeps going and going. Energizer battery.
It is an Energizer battery on the back of very important data, which is our unemployment numbers has dramatically come down. It's come down to less than 600,000. Remember, we are around the 300 to 400,000 number, but it's coming very close to that, getting near that. So I think the markets are saying, that means we are on the way back to recovery, what you call as the traditional stocks rather than the pandemic stocks. Or we'll begin to see the earnings as we head out into the outer year. And we have plenty and plenty and plenty of money in the hands of the consumers coming through the dole-out schemes. So therefore, points well to the earnings season. So the markets are rewarding Dow more than S&P or NASDAQ. Having said that, you also have, as I said, we have been continuously, this is everyday news here. There's more dough, so you don't need dough from work. You are getting the dough delivered to your home, so why do you need to work? So there is a huge problem in the market in terms of employment. People not coming back to work because they're enjoying the benefits of free money being given by Mr. Biden.
And in an interesting development, Janet Yellen flip flops again. This flip flopping consistently has been a feature of this government.
Well, it has, and she is also. I know some of the, at least couple of the viewers talked about, how can Janet Yellen be, critiqued. Well, Janet Yellen can be critiqued because generally, in my view, people who are central bankers don't hold themselves accountable for any sort of, they're macro policy. They're not micro policy. They're not accountable for quarter to quarter earnings. If their projections goes from 4.3% to 5.8% or 4.3% to 3.2%, nobody is going to hold them accountable. So they make broad set of statements. So what is the criticism about? She's basically said on one day the interest rates are inevitable to rise in a overheating economy. So there's a lot of criticism. She said, I never meant that. I said, all I meant is interest rates could rise as a result of the economy showing very positive strands. Today, she's again been critiqued. So this is the flip flop that we are referring to. She's also apparently not gone to Senate or the House and briefed on the COVID funding while she goes on the press corps and then makes statements. She was dinged for that as well. So it's a very interesting difference between Mnuchin, who was not in the press and making statements on the fiscal policies, and they used to come out as a normal course. You have almost an active engagement by Janet Yellen. So there's a lot of criticism coming out as a result of that.
Yellen doing a lot of Yellen.
Ellen is doing a lot of Elling from the wonderful state of California and from the shores of San Francisco, sir. So we are hearing her loud and clear.
With that, we bring to end today's episode. We'll be back again bright and early next Monday. But we may have a weekend program where we are going to do a deep dive into digital currency, where we are going to try and explain the current rise in the value, what is going on, what is the intrinsic value, why you should look at investing in a Bitcoin or a coin or a Doji coin. These are all, there are so many different digital currencies that are going to start sprouting out. They're going to all come out of the woodwork, and we're going to have a discussion about this, where the relevance of these things is, and so on and so forth. Do join us for that. But before that, Sridharji, if you would like to say something in summary, I'd like to invite you, sir, but I am saying goodbye for now.
Goodbye, good night. We look forward to seeing you on Sunday.